Hello, this is Lawrence Lewis.
And this is Sister Christian.
Today is Monday, April 20th, 2020. This is the Producer's Happy Hour, a podcast with two producers on opposite coasts reaching out to our filmmaking and live event community to hear your stories about how the pandemic has affected you, your life, and your work.
Your stories let us know that we're not alone. It's important for us to keep sharing our experiences and ideas. We love hearing your stories. It helps us. We think that they're important for the community in general.
Yes, so email us, or better yet, record a 1 to 2 minute voice memo and send it to producershappyhour@gmail.com. Just follow the instructions on our website at producershappyhour.com.
And please share the show with your friends, family, colleagues, people you love, people you don't love. We want these stories to be heard. The more we hear, the more we can relate to each other, and it lets us know that we're not alone.
Absolutely. Christian, today we're chatting with Tyler Owens, who is Director of Music and Marketing at Front Row Center Marketing, which is a music and lifestyle agency based in Toronto, Canada. So with live events kind of on hold, I'm sure they're hit hard.
Yeah, and since they're a music-focused experiential agency, he's going to tell us about their initiative, stayhomeandlisten.ca, which is a collection of links to Canadian artists, music, and merchandise pages.
Yes, because they can't tour right now, so they can't really make money. So support them in any way you can.
Yes, stayhomeandlisten.ca.
All right, Christian, it's Monday. We've had a whole weekend.
Whoa, it's 420.
Yes.
It is like
It is.
It is like a music video in my basement right now, just so everyone knows.
Wait, a music video from the 90s,
From
the
early
80s,
2000s.
or 2000s. Okay.
Yeah, New York hip hop videos, early 2000s. It was late 90s. Fun time. Yeah, we just had a weekend. I slept a lot. I recouped a lot. I'm feeling better.
Yeah, you had a little bit of a cough on Friday.
I did, plus a lot of fatigue, just sore and achy, hoping it's allergies. Otherwise, after sleeping for most of the weekend, I feel better.
And mentally, emotionally, you're feeling okay?
I'm feeling okay. We had some, protests have started.
Yes.
And it's disheartening to us in my mind because of all the work that we've done and all the essential workers. They don't choose to go to work. They go.
Right.
And they allow for us to stay home. So when you see protests, it's like, what are you protesting? Safety? Yeah. Are you protesting, the government looking out for your well-being? I'm not sure. But on the same token, I can completely understand that there are people out there who have to stay home and they can't afford to.
Right.
Because they have lost their jobs. So I can't imagine that that's very hard on a lot of people, because if we're being asked to stay home, then we should be incentivized to stay home. $1,200 is not enough money.
It's not enough money. So I get the frustration that they're having. It's just disheartening to see that they're not wearing masks. They're all together.
This drives me crazy. My body, my choice.
Yeah, it's funny how that comes into play now.
It's great.
You were telling me earlier about that really impactful image of seeing somebody in blue scrubs, a healthcare worker, standing in front of a car, blocking the car because, they were blocking access to the hospital. And that is a powerful image.
Yeah, it reminded me of Charlottesville. It gave me a lot of anxiety to see the video of it go down. But that was one of the main arguments of the protesters is, you get to go to work, why can't I? Well, yet again, I don't know that nurse was getting to go to work out of his internal duty to save lives. He's going to work. And the least you can do is stay at home. Yeah. So how was your weekend?
My weekend was lovely, but I also want to say, there was a protest at Eric Garcetti's home, a very different kind of protest, where they were socially distanced, they were wearing masks and gloves, but they are still fighting about rent and mortgage still being owed after all this. Like, we can't work. Why on earth do we still have to pay this money? That's a whole different podcast, but It
is, but it goes to what, not that I agree with any of the protests, but it certainly goes to, the thinking behind it. If you're going to tell me to stay home and I can't earn a living, then stop my bills.
Stop my bills.
Yeah.
Right.
And $1,200 ain't nothing.
It's not.
As we know. So.
But my weekend was really lovely.
Nice.
Christopher went home, so I've had a day and a half to myself, which is really, really nice. And the sun is out, and I went for walks, and it's been lovely. And it gave me some time to kind of really sit and think and just check in on myself and what I want coming out of all this, if I'm able to choose. I mean, we might just go right back to our regular film production things, but film production is going to look very, very different coming out of this, and trying to wrap my head around that and what it means for us.
Well, I mean, I think so too, but I also think that there's going to be a push for the cry of normalcy, quote unquote. There's going to be a push to try to mold what we used to do into a new system. I just think that client management and explaining what the parameters are is going to be important moving forward.
It's going to be important. And, you know, we're talking about this because we got an email from our friends at Smuggler. This is my news item for today. It's a Google Doc, and it's called Guidance for Production Relating to COVID-19 Phase 1. So this Phase 1, I guess, is assuming film production is going to be active during our Phase 1 of opening up society and commerce again, right? I'll put the link to this Google Doc in the show notes, but it's a very, very detailed list of best practices, common sense practices to use for film production moving forward. They went department by department, thing by thing. So like production office, motorhome, casting, handling of equipment, director scouts, transport department, and even so much as like script supervisor, provide a separate monitor so they're not sitting right next to the director. Like all these very, very thoughtful things of what we need to do to work safely. But, you know, there's not really any big revelations. It's all stuff you and I have been talking about with all the industry pros we've been chatting with.
To me, you know, I read through it, and to me, it feels like another thing for freelance production to be in charge of.
That's what I was going to say. It's just a lot more work.
Yes. And maybe this creates a new position, like a COVID cord, let's call it, or a safety officer, or, you know, maybe it's part of the DOT, you know, cord's new job too. I mean, somehow these guidelines are going to have to be implemented because people are going to forget. They're going to relapse to what they used to do before. And then now we have these, you know, rules. I mean, some of it looks like it's going to take additional days in for prep, additional days in for filming, because what we used to be able to do in the course of a shoot day is greatly reduced by this. I think that, you know, clients are going to get a less for their money when it comes to content. And that has to be communicated well in advance of the shoot day so that as, you know, producers on set, we're not dealing with expectations that are unrealistic.
Yeah. It's like, it's going to take us 3 days to dress the house and light it and get it ready for our shoot because we can't all be there on the shoot day.
No. And we're doing it by maybe the director's FaceTime with the production designer who's showing every, you know, bit of what they're doing. And that takes time. You know, connection service. There's multiple. And then you have, and then once art department's done, then you have grip and lighting come in, and then, you know, is the DP on set? Sure. Yeah. I mean, everybody's wearing.
I'm exhausted already.
I know, like lunchtime, like I saw it says put down 6 foot markers when there might be a line. Well, is that say you have a honey wagon you have somebody laying out 6 foot lines to line up to take a shit? I mean, seriously,
it's true.
But it's more than, you know, here, just have a PA do it. It's more than that. It's a lot more thought put into this, which is, you know, how we're going to have to think about this moving forward.
Yeah. It's like we have a DOT coordinator to handle all the department transportation paperwork that has to happen now. I'm looking at it as much as the same way as we would have somebody on set to monitor the safety of an animal.
Right.
It's going to be that kind of position, somebody to monitor everyone following best practices and bringing it to everyone's attention when they're not. And it just...
How old is that going to get?
That's going to get so old.
I mean,
so
and
fast.
because the next question will be, what happens when something isn't done and somebody gets, and what if somebody gets sick? You can't tell whether they got sick from your shoot or not.
No,
but
you can't tell.
I can tell you that if it happens that person only had 1 day outside their house that week and they can prove it, then yes, it did. And so is that responsibility also on production?
Right. And as we know, we've been talking about this, insurance companies are not paying claims for cancellations due to COVID-19. What about workers' comp?
Yeah.
And I know our friend Susan Ruitt Anderson, we keep talking about her because we're in touch a lot. she's been asking the payroll companies, what happens with workers' comp? Is it going to go way up, or
exactly? And then we also discovered that there are quote unquote sick pays that, is paid into as freelance. So California definitely has that. And it just that's 3 days a year.
Yeah.
So again, is that part of what you're supposed to do instead of workman's comp? And then we don't know everything about the virus yet, let alone how it works. So to work around it is going to be a challenge for sure. It's good to start talking about it now.
Yeah. So thanks to Smuggler for sharing it with us, and we're going to put that in the show notes so you guys can look at it. It's very detailed and very interesting.
Yes, and then I got a 420 story. So
what's that?
Well, this morning Shake Shack announced that they're going to give back their PPP money. I know. So for those of you out there, Shake Shack burger joint in New York that has made its way out to LA. And then, it's kind of like a In-N-Out burger versus Shake Shack. If you're on the East Coast, you're Shake Shack.
East Coast, West Coast rivalry.
Although In-N-Out burger is pretty good. So Shake Shack, and I can remember when there was only one, and it was located in Madison Square Park, and you would have a PA go over and stand in line to get everybody burgers that day. It's that kind of joint, right? So they're giving back their PPP money. They essentially got a loan for $10 million. The CEO is basically saying we've kept 90% of our workforce because of delivery and those types of things and the capital that we had. We don't need this. They saw that unfairly businesses like his and Potbelly, Ruth Chris, just to name a few, they're less than 500 employees. They were given in hotels. Now it's starting to come out even more.
Yeah.
Certain businesses were given priority, the larger ones, over the small ones that we know, our local bars or our restaurant, the mom and pop restaurants. And on average, it only takes, I say only, $40,000, which is a nominal amount of money when you talk about the $10 really million that Shake Shack got. $40,000 can keep a small business, your corner business, in
float.
Yeah. And so he gave his back, and hopefully, and that means 10 businesses can stay open.
Yeah.
Versus, not. It's on medium-sized businesses to understand that just because they have the clout doesn't mean that they need to take the loan. Right. If you're doing okay, then share with your smaller businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that is impressive they did that.
I think so too. So in honor of that and bringing it back around for 420, I'm going to order Shake Shack for delivery today.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
I have to confess, I've never eaten at Shake Shack.
That's okay. You can do it the next time you're in New York. And I heard that I think there's one out there now, like on, the promenade.
They're out here, yeah. I think I haven't done it yet because always in New York, I'm always like, I'm going to go to Shake Shack. And at the door, they list the calories and everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's...
And I look at that and I'm like,
it's 420,
I'm
dude.
Just going to go. I mean, now it's the end of the world and none of it matters.
None of it matters.
Time, money, and calories are all irrelevant.
It's right daylight. Soon it will be night.
On our website, producershappyhour.com, we have a page called Take Action. We've got a lot of resources there for getting through all this, some funding options. Hopefully they get refunded or more money put into them. So that information's still there. And then a lot of petitions and donation and philanthropic things that are close to our hearts are on there.
Oh, yeah. This is important. Rent, donate blood, save our post office. I mean, please, if you haven't been, take a look and take some action.
Yeah. All right, Christian, should we get on with our interview? Tyler Owens is Director of Music and Marketing at Front Row Center Marketing, a music and lifestyle agency based in Toronto, Canada. Front Row Center works with brands looking to use music, entertainment, and the influential culture that surrounds them to engage with fans and consumers. Tyler works mostly on corporate sponsorships and talent acquisitions for music festivals, as well as immersive lifestyle projects for brands such as BMW Canada, Post Cereals, Aurora Cannabis, Baskin-Robbins, and many more.
Helping to build Front Row Center into the Rebel with a Cause agency it is today, Tyler wants FRC to become a beacon for other passionate individuals in the marketing and event industry who are looking to venture outside the traditional large agency life and use whatever they are most passionate about music, social change, fashion, etc., as a powerful tool to create their own success.
Let's take a listen.
Hello, Ty. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to meet you. The first thing we'd like to do is just check in to see how you're doing, how your family's doing. You're located in Toronto, right?
Correct. Yeah, the Great White North. Yeah, we're doing well. It's, obviously, it was pretty weird how fast things happened. We were out in an event in Vancouver on the West Coast. We flew back and I got back on a Monday, was in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and then haven't been back since. And that was early March. And it all just happened so quickly. And then you find yourself, a month later, and it's hard to almost 5 weeks later, and it's hard to wrap your mind around. I've been home for 5 weeks now, and this is all happening. So it's just been, you got to kind of take a step back every once in a while and say, wow, this is pretty unique. And I know the word's been tossed around endlessly, but unprecedented time in our lives. So, but doing well. I feel like it's been a really interesting time to just take a pause and reflect a bit and hopefully stay busy.
Yeah. Exactly. So I know we read a little intro about you and about Front Row Center, and I know you and I have worked together before. Give us a little bit of a quick background on yourself outside of FRC, and then maybe a little info on FRC, and then kind of everything leading up to before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in Toronto now for about 12 years, working in the music experience and event space. And it really is sort of a joining of my two passions, my passion, my profession. Music is a huge passion of mine. I've played in bands and collect vinyl and just really that's what kind of moves me. I've been doing that and playing in bands for, 10 plus years. But Front Row Center, I used to work in more of the sport and event space. Front Row Center is a very music and lifestyle focused agency that I've been working with for the last 3 or 4 years. The agency is all about sort of following your passions, using music as the key driver, but also the influential culture that surrounds it. So that's everything from fashion to art to all those things that music kind of is a common thread throughout. And yeah, FRC, we just really try and use our internal employees' passions to drive our professional pursuits. That's kind of what FRC is all about. We do a lot of corporate brand immersive experiences, whether that's at music festivals, pop-up shops, as Lawrence, you and I have worked on. We work on producing shows. So that's building the stage, building the aesthetic for the bands. We work on artist negotiation, booking the bands, booking the talent, and really finding the right fit for the right brands. And then we also work in the content space. So everything from capturing video and photo to do a recap of programs we've done to developing content for social and digital campaigns as well, too.
I mean, hell, you do it all.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Well, no, it sounds like you're thinking about the entire experience, not just a portion of it. So that's fantastic. Well, I know I and Lawrence were very excited to have you on to discuss, live events is taking a huge hit right now, like huge. How has this affected FRC? And did you have projects in the works when things were shutting down? Like, how crazy was that for you?
Yeah, it's wild, actually. I think it's finally started to sink in the last couple of weeks that this isn't going to be a 2-month, 4-month, 6-month, 8-month. The forecasts we're seeing now are fall 2021 for live events to come back. So I think from our end, we did definitely have a lot of business that was going to happen this summer. We saw a lot of it being postponed at first, and now it's starting to just be all out canceled just because there's such uncertainty. We've had events that were supposed to take place in May that moved to November, and now those November dates are still not going to happen. And so you see a lot of, I think, properties and brands starting to think about, why are we putting effort and initiative into things that in 2020 likely aren't going to happen? And so what I think for us, the big kind of corner we turned was when we just made peace with the fact that we need to let tangible XM experiential events go for 2020. But how are we going to pivot? And what are we going to do to still engage our brand partners and clients, to bring music to Canadian fans across the country, to work with artists? If you're not a big artist, you're hurting right now. Live touring, live shows, merchandise, those like physical album sales, vinyl, those are your key streams of income and revenue. You're not making millions of dollars off streams, and you get your streams paid out quarterly. So we're trying to find ways and work with clients to help them, because they're in the same boat. They don't know what to do. They had a whole, summer full of festival sponsorships and live activations and pop-ups ready to go. And now they're saying, well, we don't know what to do. So we're trying to be proactive in our thinking. We've made peace with the fact that XM events and pop-ups and those sorts of things are probably gone for 2020. And so now that we've put that to bed, we're able to now really focus all of our innovation, our conversations, our meetings on how do we, leverage virtual platforms. And you guys see all these huge things happening with, Elton John and Lady Gaga's big initiative. Yeah. And that's the virtual space. And so I think that's what we started to try and do is how do we, not necessarily having an expertise on virtual platforms before this whole thing, start to expedite our education on how we become experts at, the virtual space, and how do we bring music festival like experiences and unique brand experiences to people, but in a virtual package. And so that's been our focus. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of agencies that are in our boat are also doing the same thing. So we're trying to do this as fast as possible. So we are first to market and not just piling on. And that's been a really big focus from our end as well. We do have a lot of spare time right now after we've disentangled ourselves from a lot of commitments from the summer. So now it's like you could just lay back, take your foot off the gas a bit. And I think that, there maybe was a couple days of that. But then you got to realize, if you eat what you kill, and we're not, this whole thing can go away pretty quickly if we don't transition quickly. That's what we're focused on right now.
And are you having any conversations with clients and brands actively and kind of plotting these digital events, or are you kind of just more internalizing, strategizing before you come out to the market with everything?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's a little of both. So we've had brands reach out to us and say, hey, do you have any ideas? So that obviously was something that was the impetus for us to be like, well, we should definitely be trying to, wrap our mind around how this works.
We should have an answer for that question. Yeah, check back.
But we also don't want to pretend we're experts at something we're not before we start saying, let's do this. So,
well, transparency is key, I'm sure, right?
Exactly. So we want to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row first to say, hey, we know what platform we'd use. We know how we'd go about doing this. We know how there'd be brand integration. We know, but it's kind of like building the plane as you're flying it. We're working with them. We're working with them to figure out how this goes. And so I think that's always been a big part of FRC's culture too, is we want to make sure that our clients are collaborative, not like a dictatorship. And I think that that's served us well in this situation where we can talk to them and sort of figure this thing out together. And it doesn't look like we don't pretend to be, we have the agency, we have all the answers for you. And that sort of transparency to work together in this time has been super helpful. And they understand the urgency too. They don't want to be the second brand to, do their own titled virtual festival or something. So I think there is still that urgency behind us to get that done. And it's been a little column A, a little column B. We're learning as we're pitching as well.
The overwhelming urge for me to not do anything at all is a struggle sometimes. So I understand that completely. You know what I mean? Like just take a couple days and then keep on fighting, right?
Yeah.
Do you see a way forward for live events? Any thoughts on how, we're going to get all back together and
spring kumbaya?
I filmed several things at several festivals last year, and and plus I go like it. I'm going to miss it for sure. I think everybody who goes to live events is missing it terribly right now.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, I think it's also just the general public starting to wrap their minds around, I was planning to go to this festival, I was planning to that festival with friends. Like it's going to be a very different summer. But yeah, I definitely do see into the future. I mean, I think everyone's trying to say, what's the end date? What's the end of this? And it's impossible to tell. And this is the thing that when it first started was changing by the hour.
Right.
So it's really tough to kind of predict where we're going to be. But I think like what we're planning for is eventually they'll start to roll back the regulations that are in place for social distancing, the cap on the number of people that can be in the same room together, all of those sorts of things. So I think what we're trying to do is stagger the way that we look at trying to get, brands and the general public interested. People are going to be timid coming out of this. Like people are going to be great. The event's happening. Do I want to go to it? Do I want to put myself in that situation? So I think it's when they start to roll back those regulations a little bit. What does a 50 to 100 person event look like? what does 1,000 person event look like? What does a 5,000, 10,000, 100,000? And so you start to think about all those different scenarios. And so you should have a game plan for each one of those. Is it an influencer event of 50 to 100 people, and you use that as your tangible event and then build your reach off of social. And that's how you kind of start back into it. And then, an intimate concert for 500 people to, a Lumineer show, like a big band intimate show, right. But there's a cap of 500 people and at any event. So you have to think, how do you, does a brand title that? And is it broadcast on a platform? But now there's people in the audience, but it's not a 40,000 person music festival. Right. And so we're trying to think about how you stagger that sort of rollback on regulation from right now, which is nothing, to 20, 100,000, 10,000, that sort of thing. But again, I think that we're just starting. What we're also doing is using this time to do a lot of internal housekeeping that I think we've just been so busy we've put off for a very long time. Right. One of the big things that we're focusing on right now, and I love the whole premise of producers happy hour, people sharing information, people learning from each other, but there's also this really nice kind of altruistic undercurrent on the show where you really are trying to help and make things better for people. And I think that what we've done as an agency is we've tried to figure out how we can start to walk the walk more. We've promoted a lot of, trying to get brands we work with to be more sustainable in their practices via our programs. And, we've developed CSR components to our own agency. But I think right now, like I read a great article the other day, and basically it was all about the great pause that we're having right now, the great pause, like the Renaissance.
That's what we've been calling it.
The COVID Renaissance, and we have a great opportunity. Before this happened, we were at a very critical moment with the environment and with, our political structure right now. Things are just not great. And COVID's, obviously the worst thing right now, but we had a lot of issues going into COVID. And so we're trying to figure out, what can we do as good corporate citizens to improve our own internal practices? And then once we feel comfortable saying we're walking the walk now, how do we then, I'm never going to be a politician, but I'm a marketer. And marketing has a huge influence on, the general public. So how can we use our voice as an agency to work with brands that have like minds to be better at coming out of this? And I think that that's something that we've tried to focus on during this great pause, is to take a step back, reflect on how do we become a better agency, but how do we become better people? And it sounds super, hoity-toity or like pie in the sky type of stuff, but it has to start somewhere. And I think that we're trying to use our, small pedestal to start promoting that initiative. And that's everything from, our in-office recycling program, to the office paper we buy, is it sustainable, to suppliers we use for print and building physical assets, to how do we dispose of those after a program, to, what is the brand doing for a regional cause, or how are they promoting, positivity in some way? It really is just, you have to walk the walk before you can talk the talk. And I think that's what we're using right now is the time to try and button up how we are good corporate citizens. We created actually, I think I sent this through to you guys, a stayhomeandlisten.ca initiative here in Canada.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. What you're saying is reflective of a sentiment that keeps coming up in this show. We need to really look at ourselves, and if the world's regenerating, we need to regenerate. We need to fix ourselves so we can come back as better people, start at 100 again, and try and go forward with that kind of mentality. So it's great that you are saying that, because it's been echoed. So it's not that hoity-toity or that altruistic.
We're the leaders. Your clients come to you to tell, because you're the expert in what you do. So this is how your recommendations, or you're the leader saying this is what you should be doing. And that to take that initiative is amazing.
To add to that, your initiative, stayathomeandlisten.ca, I want to hear some more about that.
Yeah, so I think, one of the big points of differentiation that we boast as an agency is our affiliation with the music industry, our relationships with artists and managers and agents and promoters. We wanted to do something for the music industry, which is a big part of our business model. So when brands come to us, our point of differentiation is we can get you the right band for a good price, and they'll chip in some great artist experiences as part of it because we know their managers or we know them personally. And we're putting, money into artists' pockets. And that is everything from the bands that are making $3,000 a gig. That's important money to them, to bands that are making 500,000 a gig. And that's just part of their cycle. Basically, what we wanted to do with Stay Home and Listen was what we read. There's a report about fans trying to help out musicians by listening to their streams more. And they figured that by listening more, they would put money in their band's pockets, right? But the reality of that is that's fractions of a cent, and it's paid out quarterly, and people needed money now. There's a ton of great bands in Toronto, as I'm sure there is in LA, as I'm sure there is in New York and all over the place, that are just, they're gigs. They're in a gig economy, and they make their money at live shows and the door sales and the merch sales. Yeah. So we created sort of this aggregate website with all of these great Canadian bands. And actually it's expanded beyond Canadian bands at this point. It links to all of their Bandcamp websites, which is returns the greatest amount of money to the artist directly right in the moment. And so you buy their vinyls, and so say the vinyl's $20. I think Bandcamp takes like 5%. They did for the month of March, they took nothing, Bandcamp, but I think it's now 5%. And then the rest goes directly into the artist's PayPal account. And
that's fantastic.
And so the best way you can help your favorite artists is to go buy a vinyl and go buy a t-shirt and go buy a whatever online. You get something tangible out of it, and it goes directly to them and the largest amount of money. So what we wanted to do was just create this hub that was easily disseminated, easily promoted, that would drive fans to one easy one-stop shop to help their favorite artists. And now we've actually started to include links to streams across Canada, so you can go watch your favorite artists as well too. So yeah, we've had some great support from local labels, indie labels in Toronto that have submitted their artists. We're actually in the process of getting artists to film quick, small little promotional videos on their phone that they're going to send to promote stayhomeandlisten.ca. So I think what we did was we understood, where our place was. We're not going to be making masks for, the frontline workers. Right. We're not going to be doing, converting our distillery to hand sanitizer. But what we do is we want to help artists. And that's this is the way we wanted to go about doing that.
There's no measure of help. I think everybody needs so much help right now that however we can help them is better than not helping them. Your platform is amazing. So,
and even the simple thing of promoting staying at home. I think a lot of people still are out, and we need to flatten the curve and all that good stuff. If we could say, hey, the artists are doing it, it's cool to stay home. And hopefully that also promotes a very strong stay-at-home message.
Exactly. For those van drivers who strictly from states away, go to Bonnaroo, or the security people, or the locals who work each venue, do you have any advice for the event production community that you could share?
Like everyone's doing right now, it's just all about kind of rethinking your ink, starting to really reinvent or re-innovate, I guess, what you do. And I think what we learned about, this whole process was we're so reliant on this one form of revenue, this one form of expertise.
Yes.
It's all about, it's cliche to say, but diversifying your portfolio. You need to think outside what it is you do as your core business so that you come out of this better off. For a tangible example of what we're doing, we didn't do too much in the social space. We don't pretend to be a social media agency. We really are about the experience and building those immersive experiences. But social media is such a large part of those XM experiences. So how do we become experts? Not to say we're a social or digital agency, but how do we at least get to a level of expertise where we can at least offer that as an additional offering to supplement your experience. And so now we've gone deep on, taking online classes and creating faux campaigns to let's see if we can do it first, and then let's start to sell that expertise to our clients. So I think if anything, this has really provided an opportunity for you to, I watched this great kind of promotional video the other day, this guy, Simon Sinek, and he was just talking about how do you reimagine your business, not for 6 months, a year, 10 years, but forever. How are you going to continue to be a business? Because the times are changing exponentially now. And if it's not, a virus like this, is it another environmental issue? Is it, what is the next thing that we need to be well insulated for to ensure that we survive the next thing? And so I think it's just getting people to break out of sort of this kind of complacency and really start to envision how they can, A, be a better person, as we talked about, but B, kind of bring different elements into their business model.
Nice. we want to thank you for spending time with us today. But before we go, I just want to ask you, on a personal level, what are you looking forward to once this is all kind of over? I mean, it can be as simple as like, visiting your favorite bar or world peace. I don't know. What do you miss? And what are you looking forward to having back in your life?
Yeah, I would say, again, Toronto, is a great music city. We have a ton of dingy clubs here with great artists coming through all the time. I'm just looking to go to, 150 cap show and just kind of have a few beers with friends and watch a really great show with another 150, passionate fans. Again, that's my real passion. That's what, moves me. And I've been watching streams. I've been listening to a ton of vinyl. I've been playing a lot of music myself. But there's something about, and as we all know, we're in events, that collective group experiencing something together that is cathartic and transcending and that sort of thing. So I think that's what I'm most missing and most looking forward to once this whole thing blows over.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
Us too. And, maybe we'll be back up in Toronto and we can go grab a beer and see a band or something at some point.
Would love that.
Divier the better.
Would love that. Divier the better. Woman after my own heart.
Yep. So,
all right, Tyler.
Well, thank you so much. It was lovely chatting with you. This was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, and keep fighting the good fight. This is really great. I love the idea. I listened to some of the podcasts before. The guests were great. So wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you.
Until we meet again.
Thank you, Tyler.
He's doing such good work. There's a huge amount of drive and determination mixed in with, some flannel. So Canada. I loved it.
And passion for music and musical artists.
And helping others.
I think that their initiative, stayhomeandlisten.ca, everybody check it out. Support local artists. I know you hear it all the time, but my God, it's so much more important now than ever because artists now, they don't make money on album sales or listens. They make money touring. They make money from live shows. Right. And that seems to be not an option for a considerable amount of time. So now we do need to stream their songs, but more importantly, buy their records, buy their merchandise, and support your local artists so they can buy their groceries, pay their rent, get through this, and get back
just like all of us.
Get back to normal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he said something that really kind of sums up my feeling entirely of what we're doing is he said that it's as if we're building the plane as we're flying it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. It just hits so home.
But he's right. A company like his that deals in live events and immersive, you can't sit back and just wait for this to blow over because this impacts that industry in a much deeper way than a lot of other industries. Like I could see a future where we're filming by September, right?
I do. I think that, yeah.
I don't see going to a concert or a festival anytime this year. So
no, I agree with that. I don't, like he said, people's personal comfort level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too. I just don't know until reoccurring theme until there's testing and we all know what we have or we don't have or something. Yeah. I just don't know that I would feel comfortable in a room with 100 people right now. Yeah. So working by August, September, sure.
Yeah. But going to shows, festivals, concerts, nah.
No, that's putting, not for a while. So
thanks to Tyler Owens from Front Row Center Marketing and their initiative. Everyone check it out, stayathomeandlisten.ca, and support your local artists, your favorite artists there. Otherwise, I think that's it for today, right?
I think that's it for today. The show is edited and co-produced by Rob Bloomkey.
Artwork and logo design by Christopher Daniels.
And our unused, amazing music was composed by Kyle Puccia.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We're back tomorrow. Until then, stay safe, stay connected, stay active, and please stay home.
Stay the fuck home.
Yes.
Thanks. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. You guys know my little face touchers out there. You know who you are. And if you leave the house, wear a mask. It's no joke. Pretend you have it if you have to leave the house.
Exactly. And send us your stories. We want to hear your stories and share them. It all helps us feel a little more connected during this strange time. You can send us a voice recording or an email to producershappyhour@gmail.com.
Lawrence, how can people reach you if they want you?
They can find all my contact information on my two websites, lawrencetLewis.com or for voiceover work, voiceoflawrence.com. And Christian, what about you?
SisterChristianProduces.com.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.